For the third year in a row, no one remembered my birthday. But then I saw my sister's post. Thanks Mom and Dad for the new apartment. I just blocked them all. 2 days later, my dad was at my door begging to talk. This year I didn't even wait for midnight. I already knew they wouldn't call. I knew because they hadn't last year or the year before. But still I stared at my phone until 12:01 pretending it might light up. It didn't. I turned 30 with the kind of silence that feels personal. The worst part was I'd actually reminded them this time. Casually, nothing dramatic. Just a little message in the family group chat 3 days earlier. Said I might do something small at home if anyone was around. No one responded. No, "Aw, happy early birthday." Not even the usual thumbs up. Just silence. Seen by Mom. Seen by Madison. At first I told myself they were just busy. People get like that. Life happens. I had no reason to make it a big deal. But still, when my son woke me up bouncing on the bed shouting for waffles, I kept my phone nearby. Just in case. Just in case anyone remembered. They didn't. My husband did though. He made breakfast. Waffles, strawberries, a candle and mine. He kissed my cheek and said happy birthday like he meant it. That should have been enough. But it wasn't. Not because I needed a party. Not even because I expected a gift. I just thought, after everything, that they'd at least say something. I sat on the couch that afternoon with my coffee going cold in my hands, trying not to check my phone again. I told myself it didn't matter. But then I opened Instagram and saw it. Madison standing in an empty living room with new flooring and floor-to-ceiling windows. Grinning like she just won the lottery. The caption, "Thanks Mom and Dad for helping me get this place. Couldn't have done it without you, 2 hearts." I read it 3 times. This was the sister who'd called me last month in tears because she was about to be evicted. I had sent her money. He never paid me back. Never even said thank you, really. But somehow just days later she was posing in a brand new downtown apartment. Way too nice for someone with no job and no savings. And our parents? They helped her move in. Meanwhile, they hadn't even sent me a damn emoji. I didn't cry. I didn't get angry. Not at first. It just felt like something inside me finally caved in. I went through my contacts one by one. Mom, Dad, Madison, and hit block on all 3. No message. No explanation. Just done. It was weird how quiet it felt afterward. I thought I'd feel guilty. I didn't. I felt like I could finally breathe. But of course it didn't last. 2 days later, while I was still deciding whether or not to even mention any of it to my husband, the doorbell rang. It was 9:06 in the morning. I was still in my robe, half asleep, holding my toddler on my hip when I opened the door. It was my dad. He looked tired. Like he hadn't slept. He had a paper bag in one hand and that weird nervous look he always gets when he knows he's messed up. He said he needed to talk. Said it was important. Said he didn't understand why I blocked them. I didn't answer. I just moved out of the way and let him in. He sat down like nothing had happened. Like I'd invited him over for coffee and not like he'd shown up after ghosting my 30th birthday and helping my sister into a new apartment. He placed the paper bag on the table and started talking about Madison. About how the move had been exhausting. How downtown parking was a nightmare. How she still didn't have a couch. I leaned against the counter, not saying a word. Just watching him, waiting to see when he'd get to the part that involved me. He didn't. Not for a while. He talked like he'd come for a casual catch-up. He even laughed at one point, said something about how Madison still couldn't figure out how to use her buzzer system. Like I was supposed to care. Like I hadn't spent the last 2 days wondering how I could mean so little to people I kept choosing over myself. Eventually he got to it. He said he'd noticed something was wrong when he tried to text me. Tried to send me a message about a situation they were dealing with. A surprise medical bill that came out of nowhere. He said he was going to ask me for help like he always did, but the message didn't go through. That's when he realized he was blocked. That was the first honest thing he said all morning. I asked if he even knew what day my birthday was. He said of course he did, the 12th. That was wrong. It's the 11th. He corrected himself quickly, blamed it on the stress, said he and my mom had talked about calling me. They'd even gotten me something, he said. That's when he slid the paper bag closer to me. Inside was a card. One of those $2 ones from the grocery store with a balloon on the front. No envelope. Just the card with my name in the corner in my mom's handwriting. Inside, happy belated birthday, love you always. And a $50 Target gift card. I stared at it for a while. I think he expected me to be touched. Like this cheap afterthought could undo everything they hadn't done. Like this was enough to erase years of being the backup daughter. He said they didn't mean to make me feel left out. That Madison just needed more help lately. That I was doing well, and had a husband and a kid and stability. He actually used that word, stability, like it was a reason to treat me like I didn't matter. I asked him if he knew how many times I'd helped cover their bills in the last 2 years. He looked confused. I told him I'd paid their internet, their power, their gas bill. I reminded him that when Madison's roommate bailed, I was the one who Venmo'd her half the rent. Not just once but 4 times. No one had ever paid me back. No one had even said thank you. He didn't argue. He just sat there. Then he said he was sorry. He told me Mom felt awful. That Madison missed me. That they all wanted to sit down, talk it out. Clear the air. He suggested we meet for lunch that weekend. Somewhere neutral, casual. Just to talk. Reconnect. I hesitated. I wish I could say I stood my ground, that I told him no, that I closed the door and walked away. But I didn't. I said okay. I don't even know why. Maybe part of me still hoped they'd finally hear me. That they'd show up and act like a real family for once. Or maybe I just felt guilty. Tired. Weak. He left with a smile, like everything was back on track. Like the problem had been solved. But deep down I knew better. I just didn't know how bad it was going to get. Not yet. The restaurant was small, tucked on a side street in the nicer part of downtown, and I knew before I even walked in that it was Madison's choice. She'd posted about it on Instagram just a week earlier. Some perfectly staged shot of her wine glass against a plate of pasta. I hadn't eaten there in years. Not since before all this started. When we arrived, they were already at the table. My mom smiled and waved like nothing had happened, like she hadn't forgotten my birthday for the 3rd time in a row. Madison gave me a quick, tight smile, the kind you give a cashier, not your sister. My dad stood up, pulled my chair out for me like we were playing some happy family role. My husband came with me. I told him he didn't have to, but he insisted. He sat close, his hand resting on the back of my chair. He didn't say much at first. Just watched. He'd been warning me for months, saying I was letting them use me. I never wanted to believe him. The first 20 minutes of lunch felt like small talk at a stranger's wedding. They asked about our son, about my husband's work, about how the house was coming along. No one mentioned my birthday. No one mentioned the fact that I'd blocked them. They just kept smiling like everything was fine. Then Madison started talking about her new apartment. How beautiful it was. How the parking garage had security. How she was thinking about getting a puppy now that she had space. She thanked Mom and Dad again right there at the table for making it possible. I felt my husband stiffen beside me. Mom shifted the conversation to how things have been tough lately. Dad chimed in about bills piling up, unexpected costs, insurance problems. The kind of vague talk I'd heard before. I didn't even have to look at my husband to know he knew what was coming. They needed money. First it was just hints. Comments about how it's been one thing after another, and we've been so stressed. Then Dad said they hated to ask, but if they couldn't make a payment soon they were going to lose the car. Mom nodded, looking at me like she was rehearsing for a sad commercial. Then Madison jumped in like she was part of the chorus. She said she wished she could help but her bills were already too high. She said, "I'm already stretched," while sitting there with a brand new designer bag next to her chair. And then she looked at me. That look said everything. This was my cue. This was where I always stepped in, where I sighed, asked how much, and saved the day. My husband squeezed my hand under the table. He didn't say a word, but I could feel the warning in his grip. This was the moment I was supposed to stop. But I didn't. I asked how much. It wasn't a small number. A few $1,000s. Enough to make my stomach knot up. I hesitated, but then I heard my mom say, "We don't know who else to turn to," and Dad said, "You've always been so good to us." And like a fool I nodded. I said I'd transfer it later that night. My mom looked relieved, like a weight had been lifted. Dad thanked me. Madison didn't say a word. She just went back to her pasta, scrolling her phone between bites. On the drive home no one said anything. My husband kept his hands on the wheel, staring straight ahead. When we got inside the house he shut the door behind us and finally spoke. He asked me why I kept doing it. Why I kept draining our savings for people who didn't even send a text on my birthday. Why I was taking money from our son's future just to keep them afloat. I didn't have an answer. I just said I wanted peace. That I wanted them to care about me even if I had to buy it. He said the thing I didn't want to hear. "They don't care, Kelly. They never did. And you're pretending they do." That night, while my son was asleep and my husband sat in the living room staring at the TV without watching it, I sent the money anyway. I told myself this would be the last time. But deep down I already knew it wouldn't be. 3 weeks passed. Nothing. Not a text. Not a call. Not even a lazy emoji in the group chat. I kept checking my phone even though I told myself I was done waiting. I wasn't. Every morning I looked at my bank account and saw that missing $3,000 like a bruise that wouldn't fade. It wasn't just about the money. It was what the silence meant. They'd taken it and disappeared. At first I thought maybe they were embarrassed. Maybe they felt guilty and didn't know how to face me. But that theory didn't hold up for long because on a random Thursday afternoon, I found out exactly where that money went. I was on Facebook half scrolling while my son napped on the couch next to me when a video caught my eye. It was one of Madison's friends. One of those people who lives online and overshares every second of their day. The video was loud and chaotic. Music blaring, people dancing, someone yelling, "Cheers to Madison," before the screen panned to a living room lit with fairy lights and filled with people. Madison stood in the center, holding a glass of champagne, surrounded by gifts, balloons, and what looked like a brand new leather sectional. Caption read, "Maddie's housewarming bash was fire, 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 so proud of her. New job, new place, new life. You're glowing, girl. 2 hearts, briefcase, bottle with popping cork. New job." I clicked through the friends' photos and found it all. Madison had started working for a boutique marketing agency, full-time with benefits, nearly a month ago. There was even a post from her own page showing off a designer tote bag and the caption, "First big girl bonus." Bonus. From the job she got before that lunch. Before she looked me in the face and told me she was stretched. Before she let me believe she couldn't help with mom and dad's car payment. She hadn't just lied. She had let me pay her share. My stomach flipped. I called my husband into the room and handed him my phone without saying a word. He looked through the posts, photo after photo of Madison celebrating with our money. I watched the muscle in his jaw twitch before he finally handed my phone back and walked out. He didn't say a single word. I sat there, my phone still in my hand, trying to make sense of it. At some point I opened Venmo and found the old transaction. I stared at the date. 2 days before her job announcement. She'd already signed the offer. Still, I didn't want to believe it. I told myself maybe mom and dad didn't know. Maybe Madison didn't tell them. Maybe I was just overthinking again. So I did something stupid. I called her. No answer. I left a voicemail. Calm, controlled. I asked her to call me back. I said I saw the posts and just wanted to understand. I asked why she didn't say anything at lunch. Why she let me pay again. Why no one told me. She never called me back. The next night I got a text. Not from Madison. From my mom. Just one line. "We didn't want to cause more tension between you and your sister." That was it. Not sorry. Not an explanation. Just, we didn't want to make things worse. Like lying to me, using me, and letting me hand over money we needed for our kid was somehow protecting me. I stared at that message for a long time. Then I showed it to my husband. He read it. Quiet. Then said, "You need to block them again. All of them. This time for good." I didn't answer. I couldn't. I felt stupid. Like everything he warned me about was crashing down at once. I defended them for years. Ignored the favoritism, the gaslighting, the way I was only ever needed, not loved. And now here I was, broke, exhausted, and the punchline to their family joke. But I wasn't done being humiliated. The next morning our bank called. My husband answered. They said someone had tried to use his debit card to pay a bill online. A Comcast account in my dad's name. The same one we'd helped them with last year. Apparently my dad had kept the card number. Never deleted it. Just saved it for later. My husband didn't yell. Didn't throw things. He just got up, made a few calls, canceled the card, and locked down the accounts. Then he came into the kitchen, leaned on the counter, and said, "You're not giving them another $1. I'll deal with this now." I asked him what he meant. He said, "I'm getting our money back." I thought he was bluffing. He wasn't. I didn't ask my husband what he was going to do. I think part of me didn't want to know because I already felt humiliated enough. I dragged him into a mess I should have seen coming a mile away, and now he was the one fixing it. He left the house without much explanation, just kissed our son on the head, grabbed his keys and said he'd be back soon. I watched him drive away from the window and had this tight feeling in my chest like something was about to break. I wasn't wrong. About 2 hours later my phone rang. Unknown number. Local area code. I thought for a second it might be him calling from a landline or something. Maybe the situation had gone bad, maybe he needed me to pick him up. So I answered without thinking. It was Madison. She didn't even give me a chance to speak. Just launched into it like she'd been waiting for the moment. She said I had completely embarrassed myself. That sending my husband to handle things was pathetic. She called him controlling, said he had no business showing up at our parents' place acting like a cop. She said I was weak for letting him fight my battles. That if I had something to say, I should have been woman enough to say it myself. Then she got uglier. She said she was sick of me acting like a martyr. That I always played the victim. That just because I had a kid and a mortgage didn't make me better than anyone else. That our parents helped her because she deserved it and maybe I needed to get over myself. I didn't say anything. Not a word. I just held the phone frozen while she kept going. She said they were all sick of walking on eggshells around me. That I made everything about me. That I was always keeping score and making people feel bad for helping her. Then she laughed, and said maybe if I hadn't been so boring, I'd be the one getting help instead of always handing it out. She ended with this: "You'll always be the bitter one, Kelly. The one who keeps receipts. The one who can't stand that I'm loved more than you. And you know what? You'll never be happy. Because losers like you always need someone else to blame." And then she hung up. I don't even remember setting the phone down. I sat on the floor in the hallway, leaned against the wall, and just stayed there. My head was buzzing. My heart felt like it had been scooped out and left somewhere cold. It was like every suspicion I'd ever had, every quiet fear I'd ignored. She said it out loud. They all knew what they were doing. It wasn't a misunderstanding. It wasn't favoritism I imagined. It was deliberate. And worse, they thought it was justified. I didn't even cry right away. I just sat in this thick, ugly silence and let her words bounce around in my skull. About 30 minutes later, the front door opened. My husband came in and found me sitting there. I looked up at him, still holding my phone, and the first thing I asked was, "Did you yell?" He shook his head. Said no. Said he didn't need to. He told me he went to my parents' house and knocked on the door. That my dad opened it, confused, but let him in. My mom was there too. Madison wasn't. He told them what happened. The $3,000. The debit card. The housewarming party. The job. And then he told them we were done. He said if they didn't give the money back today, we'd press charges. Bank fraud. Digital records. He said it calmly but clearly, like someone who was ready to follow through. They didn't even argue. My dad went to the kitchen and came back with an envelope. Said they didn't want trouble. My mom cried, tried to talk, but he told her not to. Just give him the money and let him leave. He handed me the envelope. Inside was the full amount. All in cash. $3,000 in 20s and 50s. I held it for a minute, then asked him, "Tao what?" He looked at me and said, "Now you decide if you ever want them back in your life. But I'm done. And I think you should be too." That night, I sat in bed while my son slept beside me and thought about everything. Madison's voice kept echoing in my head, but this time it didn't hurt the same. It just sounded hollow. Because finally I wasn't confused anymore. They didn't love me less. They didn't forget me by accident. They just didn't think I mattered enough to treat differently. And that broke something in me I'd been trying to keep whole for years. But it also set me free. I knew what I had to do. One last thing. I didn't block them right away. I wanted to. Every part of me was screaming to shut the door, to finally be done, to pull the plug on years of being the emotional backup generator to people who only noticed when their lives short-circuited. But I waited. 3 days. Not because I was confused or hoping they'd apologize or even expecting a call. I waited because I wanted to be sure that when I ended it, it would be for good. Not another line in the sand I'd eventually erase the minute one of them called crying. No. This time had to mean something. I spent those 3 days quietly. I didn't talk much. I didn't reach out to friends. I just watched. I watched my son line up his toy cars on the floor with the kind of concentration I used to reserve for trying to please people who never thanked me. I watched my husband, the man I thought I was dragging through my family drama, cook dinner and clean dishes like it was just another Tuesday. He didn't say much either, but I could tell. He was waiting, letting me sit with it, letting me realize for myself what he already knew. By the third night, I was standing in the bathroom brushing my teeth, staring at myself in the mirror when it hit me, I hadn't cried. Not once. Not after Madison's call. Not after the money came back. Not after deleting their texts. Nothing. Because I wasn't sad. I was done. The kind of done that feels calm. Heavy but solid. Like the kind of silence that finally means peace. So I opened my phone. First my dad. Block. Delete. Then my mom. Block. Delete. And finally Madison. I paused. Not because I was conflicted, but because I realized this wasn't just about her anymore. This was about the girl I used to be. The one who used to bend over backwards to make her smile, to cover her messes, to believe that one day she'd finally be proud of me. I let her go too. Block. Delete. And it felt clean. I went to bed that night with nothing in my chest except relief. But of course it didn't end there. 2 weeks later, I got a text from an unknown number. Just one line. "You're really going to let him come between us?" No name. No punctuation. No courage. I didn't need to ask who it was from. I didn't reply. I just stared at it for a second, then deleted it like the junk it was. Because here's the thing, there was never an us. Not really. There was me, constantly trying to be part of something that had already chosen who mattered. There was them, taking and taking until I didn't even recognize my own birthday anymore. And then there was my husband. The only person who actually stood up for me instead of standing on me. The money was back in our account. But more than that, something inside me had shifted. I stopped blaming myself. I stopped feeling guilty for saying no. I stopped measuring love by how much I was willing to give without asking for anything back. And I finally understood what people meant when they say peace isn't free. You have to cut the rope to get it. I don't know if they'll try again. Maybe next year when something goes wrong. Maybe when Madison needs help again and they all pretend the past never happened. But I won't be there. I'll be somewhere else entirely. In a life I built with people who show up because they want, not because they need something. And if anyone ever asks what happened with my family, I'll just say this. I stopped calling it love when it only hurt one person. And that person was always me. No. Now I choose different. And this time I don't go back. It's been a week since everything. Since the money came back. Since I blocked them. Since I deleted the text that probably came from Madison but might have been my mom. It's all a blur now. But something kept nagging at me. Not guilt, I was past that. It was more like this quiet pressure in my chest that wouldn't let go. Like something still needed to be said, not typed. And not in defense, not in anger. So I made the decision no one would have expected, least of all me. I went over there. I didn't call ahead. I didn't give them time to prepare. I just drove over in the late afternoon, parked in the driveway I hadn't stood in since last Christmas, and knocked on the door. My dad answered. His face dropped for half a second, like he wasn't sure if he should hug me or brace for impact. I walked in without saying much. My mom was in the kitchen. She looked surprised too, but not in a bad way. Just cautious. We sat at the dining table. Same place where they once opened Madison's college acceptance letter like she'd won the Nobel Prize. Same table where I told them I was pregnant and they asked if it was on purpose. No one touched the iced tea in front of them. I told them everything. I told them I knew about Madison's job before they asked for money. I told them I knew about the party. I told them I knew about the debit card charge. I told them about the way she spoke to me, the things she said. But more than all that, I told them the truth. I didn't respect them anymore. That I had spent years trying to win a game I didn't even know I was losing. That I was tired of always being the one who showed up when they needed something, only to be forgotten when it was my turn. And then I said the part one didn't plan on. I told them I was hurt, yes. But more than that, I was exhausted. I told them how hard it's been being the dependable one. The strong one. The one who doesn't fall apart even when she's barely holding it together. I didn't cry. Neither did they. But something shifted in the room. Something real. My dad leaned forward. Said he never realized how deep it went. Said he thought I was just stronger than Madison. That I didn't need the same kind of attention. My mom didn't speak for a long time. Then she said quietly that maybe she didn't know how to show love in a way I could feel. And for the first time in what felt like years, we talked. Really talked. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't perfect. But it was honest. And it was overdue. I left after about 2 hours. No yelling. No tears. Just 3 people who finally stopped pretending. I don't know what happens next. I'm not saying everything's suddenly healed. But I do know this. That conversation was the first time I walked away from them feeling lighter, not heavier. Something needed to be broken open. Maybe this was it. I haven't told my husband yet. I don't know how to. Not because I'm hiding it, but because I'm not sure how he'll take it. He went to war for me. Got our money back. Protected me when I wouldn't. And now I've gone back and reopened the door. Part of me feels guilty about that. But a bigger part of me feels calm. For the first time in a long time, I feel like maybe I'm not stuck in the same story anymore. Maybe this time we're writing a new one.